Good evening, everyone. Phil here. Welcome to the Daily Wrap for what was Friday, the 22nd of March, 2024, also known as Dragon's Dogma 2 launch day, a day when I'm finally breaking up this marathon of Baldur's Gate and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth with something different, a brand new release that you guys said you wanted to see, as opposed to the other new releases that came out today. This was the one that you picked, and so I played it all day long. To give you all a recap, to start today was a fun level 1 podcast, which talked a little bit about Dragon's Dogma 2 and its reception, but also about a ton of gaming news. I mean, there was stories about Starfield and its botched ending, and how Bethesda now develops games in these giant, bloated places where no one can get anything done. There was a whole article about Kotaku falling apart at the seams. There was an article about Larian Studios saying they're no longer going to make D&D content ever, among many other stories. So I hope if you're interested in my day off segment to find out what I did yesterday when I was not here streaming, but also a lot of game news covered, check out the podcast from this morning. Okay? Now, basically I played Dragon's Dogma 2 all day long, about 5.5 hours of gameplay today. Okay? Here's what I have to say. So far, the story is intriguing and gets better the further in you get. First, it's very basic, but it's getting more intriguing when you get to the capital city later on in the game. The gameplay elements are sound and interesting. Action-based RPG as opposed to so many more slower turn-based games I've been playing recently. This one being fully action-based is actually a breath of fresh air. Plays very similarly to what I remember from Dragon's Dogma 1. Like, I actually jumped right in and started playing it. And, oh yeah, you jump, you climb, get to the weak point, stab it there a million times. You know, while your party is basically buffing and doing things. I was like, yeah, it's pretty much almost the same. When it comes to that, not even sure exactly what they've improved or changed. The pawn system is unique and refreshing. You yourself are a character that will always level up, and you have one pawn that will always be your partner and level up along with you in the game. But then you have 2 pawns that you summon at any time during any one of the town segments, or out in the world you can find these summoning spots. And basically, they're just static characters that don't change, and they are fun, and then you can change them up whenever you're leveling up. Let's say you start at level 8 and all of a sudden you're level 10. Well, you probably don't want a level 7 or 8 person with you, so then you get rid of them, you go to another summon point, you summon some more pawns that are actually real characters other people created, and it's pretty neat in that regard because it always keeps it moving and rotating with your cast. And you know, for the most part, the open world structure is interesting because you can wander around and do as much side content as you want. Like, you could just beeline through story elements, or you can explore more and do optional fights and get optional items. And that's really where some of the big appeal of the game is, the amount of freedom it gives you. You know, today, I had fought a giant cyclops that I found in the open world before I had ever even encountered one in the story. Later on, hours later in the story, you actually run into one. And the game treats it like, oh, that's the first time, but I'd already beaten one. And that's really cool. When you're in an area and you're walking around, you're exploring, you discover a rare new enemy or whatever, and then when you kill it, you get tons of experience points as a reward. Usually you level up and you get some good loot from it or whatever, or you find a nice optional area with some good loot there, or a lot of money and stuff like that. It's really neat, and I like that about the game. But if you don't want that, you can treat it as a more streamlined experience and just go from point A to point B as it instructs you. So yeah, really neat. And today I got through many segments. I think I went to 3 different towns. We ended up at the end of the stream in the capital city. Got a little confused there because the capital city is huge, and there's all these quests you're given immediately, and they're like, oh, go sneak around at night and do this one, and I can't find a way to do it. I'm completely stumped on how I'm supposed to do it. But I'm having a good time with the game so far, and the one criticism everyone has is the frame rate. The frame rate of the game is poor on everything. It's not even just, oh, one platform has it bad. No, the game does not run well on most platforms, and people are pretty frustrated about that. Outside of the frame rate, the graphics are great. Like, the detail and the effects of spells and things are really good, but man, that frame rate chugs. You know, it's around 30. Every once in a while it could go above 30, but it's mostly 30, and then when you're in combat, it sometimes could go to like 20. That's not good. You know, a game like this, it should be running better. It's not acceptable that Capcom couldn't get their RE engine to run better for this style of game, but that's the only engine they're developing games on now, so I guess they had to do the best of what they had, right? So we had epic fights against groups of enemies, giant, you know, kind of mini boss enemies that are almost like a hybrid of Shadow of the Colossus and other RPGs to fight. Great world exploration. learning all kinds of different systems, like the crafting system and everything. That will be the one other criticism that I will lay on the game. It, much like the Dark Souls series, it doesn't tell you how to do half the stuff. You just either need to figure it out yourself by chance in some cases, or someone has to tell you, So I'm streaming and I'm like, man, I don't know how I'm supposed to get this thing. Oh, you could craft it in your inventory. How? Well, you just got to figure it out. It's there. There's a thing that says combine. You can just mess around. Why didn't it have a tutorial for that? Don't bother with it. Same thing with like climbing enemies and stuff. They don't explain it till you run into the Cyclops in the story, but you can run into other bigger enemies way before that and have no clue what you're supposed to do to take them down. They never explained it. There was like maybe 5 times today when there's elements that the game just did not clearly explain, and I don't know if they just forgot or they just don't care, but it's like, man, if you didn't play the first game, you're at a big disadvantage in this one. Still having tons of fun. After 5.5 hours, I had a great time. The audience was a mixed bag. What I mean by that is some people loved it. They were like, wow, this is very refreshing because unlike the other RPGs, it's a lot of action. Like anytime you're in the open world, there's tons of action going on, and people like that. Some people are like, oh, it's just another RPG again, and we don't want another one. You already have RPG overload. Why are you playing this one? Which I explained. I'm only playing it for a day. We're going to finish up the 2 that I'm playing, and then we're going to come back to this after the fact. I'm not just playing this nonstop, okay? So, and then you have people who I guess it didn't show up today because, like, the first stream had pretty good attendance. The late stream did not. So I guess people already, after one streamer burn out, and you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Very similar to what happened with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. People showed up for the first stream. They were engaged. After that, kind of died out. I'm going to be honest with you guys. All these RPGs are just too much. I know it for a fact. Even though I really like this one, it's very different from the others. For a viewing audience, people don't want to come to this channel and just watch an RPG constantly. And that's all that's fucking coming out. Really, it's ridiculous. The fucking tremendous amount of RPGs that are still coming out, as if these game developers have no fucking conscious thought about them. The game landscape has too many right now. So, I like the game. I enjoyed it a lot. Support today was okay. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't terrible. It was kind of middle of the road. All right, kind of. Here's how it went. On a day when I play Baldur's Gate, I get a ton of support for Baldur's Gate, and I get almost no support for Like a Dragon at Night. Today, there was decent support on the first stream, not as much as when I played Baldur's Gate, but there was also decent support on the late stream, so it kind of evened out to a normal day for me. Even though it's a big new release, again, it's an RPG. I know it's going to happen. When I start actually playing other games of interest, the interest will come back. People will come back to watch and support, but it ain't going to happen when every game's an RPG. I know that, okay? Anyway, I had a good time with it today. Now, it goes back on hiatus. Well, not really back on hiatus, but it goes on hiatus, on the shelf, I should say. As of this week, the rest of this week, we're pushing to finish Baldur's Gate 3 and Like a Dragon. Once they're done, then we can go full force into other games. And I'm kind of thinking it'll likely be some Dragon's Dogma alternated with something else, possibly Alone in the Dark, which seems like a horror game that would be right up my alley, and a lot of people are actually enjoying it now. So maybe I'll alternate those on the day, and then the night streams would be like Final Fantasy VII, and maybe co-op with my wife in the playthrough of Beyond Two Souls that we're going to be doing too. So that could be some good variety there, and I think that might work. So, yeah. So if you enjoyed Dragon's Dogma 2 today, let me know. Like the videos on my channel if you enjoyed them, and leave comments on them, and let me know your thoughts about this game, and if you want to see it in the rotation and all of that, okay? I had a great time with it personally. I can't wait to get back to it, and it sucks now we have to wait like a week, but you got to finish these lingering playthroughs, okay? Keep in mind, you can always support the playthrough even though you weren't there for the stream. You can do a super thanks on the video. You can leave a tip. The description's in the description of every video. It would be great to get some support for this playthrough, okay? Now, tomorrow, Saturday, the 23rd, we are back to the normal schedule of Baldur's Gate 3 on the first stream and Like a Dragon on the late stream. The good news is we are definitely pushing into the end game of both games. In Baldur's Gate, we are in the final optional mission before essentially you start heading up to the setup for the end game. So we're getting there. And then in Like a Dragon, we're about to finish chapter 12 and head into chapter 13, which is the next to last chapter. So as long as I stick to my guns and I play it Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think we may beat these games by the end of the week or be this close. So like one more streaming day and then we finish them. Okay. So let's see how that goes. And I thank you all for everyone who was here today, had a fun, engaging time with me. And I'm liking the game and I can't wait to get back to it when we get through everything else. So thank you so much for understanding that it has to go on the shelf till we finish up this other stuff. All right. But in the meantime, I wish you all a safe and fun night. I hope that you had a good time with me today. And if you're watching those videos, enjoy them. See you tomorrow when we get into the end game push for both games. All right. Thanks a lot. RPG Overload will conclude soon. Have a good night.